For the last 5 weeks, I did not get to vlog for various reasons, and you are looking at one of them. Recently, I made a proposal for a 2D to 3D conversion node. Now, as you guys know, I've been on this one for years. God has had me deal with this 3D thing for a very long time. And quite frankly, I felt led to do a proposal for it for Blender so that you do not have to settle for the super long render times that you find in general stereoscopic rendering. So as you can see, it is quite extensive. At last count, I found it was about 14 pages with the images included. So as you can see, it's quite thorough, just like the NPR one. And it also includes VR. So I definitely encourage you guys to go check it out. Link will be in the description as well as in the post. So go give it a thumbs up or an upvote. You know, this little arrow thing over there. Yeah, so that it can also get coded, because it will save everyone an immense amount of time. I kid you not. I really look forward to this one. So moving on to Exodus itself. Now with the 3D proposal and all that kind of stuff, God had me build various things for it, which we'll probably get to in a later video or later in the video, doesn't matter. But it did mean that I had to re-render a huge amount of stuff this week. And I'm not talking about re-rendering multiple shots. I'm talking about re-rendering the same thing over and over and over again until it actually gave a good result. And that took a long time. So I'm not even going to get into all that. But what I am going to do is I'm going to show you what it looks like. So this is the 2D one. The 2D one didn't need to be re-rendered, which is like, yay. And this is a new shot right there. So I'm going to show you the new shot, and then I'm going to show it to you in 3D. Oh, yeah. So let me just play that for you guys. There's no new sound, so I've turned the sound off for this. There's no new sound in the project. Let me just rephrase that. Okay. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. It's just Aaron putting his hands over the water. So wait for it, and boom. Just love that. Okay, so what this looks like in 3D. Okay. Now obviously this is full color, so don't be surprised by that. Just to make it go a little bit faster, I'm going to turn off the color correction, which just boosts the contrast a little bit, just making it that just a little bit more polished. I need to put on my glasses. Okay. So what the new method does is it still works with the 10 layers, but the difference is it works from both sides. That means that the overall tearing that you experience in the image when you have to create that new angle is shared between the eyes. That means that you'll get a little bit of added information around the edges. I know this arrow is really confusing over the 3D. But you just get a little bit of information tear instead of like this big gaping hole on the side of the character. So it gives you a more centered feel. It just watches a lot more comfortably. I did notice that if you get to watch it in full color, it's like there's this kind of mirror like pull or glassy pull around the character. That's just one of those things you don't have the information, which is why I made the proposal. So go check that out. So I'm just going to show you guys these shots in 3D, these two. That's so awesome. Look at this. Now this was a little difficult to get because when something is, how do I phrase this? The depth map goes from black, which is the furthest back, to white, which is the furthest front. So if something is pure white, you know, anything above 0.9, there's like this really, really major gaping hole in the repairs. no matter if you share it between the eyes or not. It's just really, really, really horrible. I think it's just that one step too far, you know, like putting something against your face, you know, you're not going to get focus on it. I think that's the kind of thing it boils down to. So what I did here was I tried to flatten out Aaron a little bit and just push him a little bit away from the camera so that he's not like at the camera in terms of the depth, and that the sky is still further back than he is, so that you would get that sense of, oh, that's the sky, oh, that's Aaron. And it actually does work without creating weird noise. You can especially check it out on the fingers. The fingers are a small area with really small gaps. So there's very little info to correct there. I've noticed that GIMP 3D struggles immensely with it. And whenever I use a method that's similar to GIMP 3D in Blender, it does exactly the same thing. So it's not that the method is wrong, it's that it needs to be improved upon. It's just one of those things. But I really, really, really like this new method. It does take roughly, still takes about 31 seconds per frame, but there's a little bit more to it, which we'll get to now with the next new shot. Okay, so this is the next shot, which is where the frogs are supposed to like come up onto the land, come out of the river. Now what you're looking at right now is the clean background. Let me just take off my glasses. What you're looking at is the clean background without any glaring or any kind of softness or anything like that. So it's very, very flat. What the final will look like more, which is not the final because I still have to add a lot of objects to it, is more like this, which has the glaring over it and all that kind of stuff, which I'm going to talk about right now because there's a very cool trick to this. I wonder if I should actually make a tutorial on it. I think I should make a tutorial video on it because it's a very, very useful trick for water. Now, as you can see, there are rays coming through the water. Now, you know Blender Render does not support caustics, so obviously this has been a lot of fakery. You can see there. It's a compositing trick, which I'll probably do a tutorial on if God willing he'll allow me to do that. But basically, this will be where the frogs come from, just like behind the camera and from the sides, and they will be, you know, going up over here towards Aaron because Aaron is holding up the stick. That would not be the case in every area in Egypt because the focus is not on Aaron. This is kind of like a cinematic choice so that the localized frogs will go towards Aaron. It's a difficult shot to do in 3D. It's an extremely difficult shot to do in 3D. What happens is when you have transparent objects that do have some level of opacity to them, they shift forward the objects that are behind them. That's the nature of the depth map situation. It's not because it tries to be incorrect, but it's a problem that comes with the 2D to 3D conversion from depth information. One way to overcome that is to composite in a very specific way, and that's what I'm going to get to right now. Okay, so what I did here was I rendered out the glares separately because they have to go over, you know. They still have their own depth, but they're layered over the actual image. And then we have the depth map of the physical stuff itself, and of course we have our 2D, which is like extremely flat. So what happens is I use the glares as a depth map themselves, because usually when light is like really, really bright, it's like it doesn't have any depth while it does have depth. It's a very weird phenomenon. So for that very reason alone, the brightest parts will be at the front and the dullest parts will be at the back. I know this is not necessarily the case for real life, but this is the only option we really have here because we can't get the depth estimation from the light beams themselves. So, moving on. So what I did is I used a conversion of the glares to black and white because they are in color. So anyway, what it does is I convert it to black and white for the depth, and of course the original goes into image. It also gets converted depth-wise through the 10-layer system, and that simply gets added over the individual shifted angles that are based on the normal depth map. So it's not rocket science, but it takes really long to render. So anyway, you can see the settings for both are exactly the same so that you get a consistent result. And then that is blurred, and then I have this little underwater split effect. It's nothing fancy, so I'm going to quickly show you how to do that. It's very similar to chromatic aberration, but it is just a little bit more consistent. So let me just get my original 2D angle over here and get a nice viewer going. There we go. So if I zoom in, you can see that there's a color separation going on there. It helps to make you feel like you're underwater, and light doesn't behave exactly the same way as it does in air. So it looks like this. Basically what it does is it pulls the red a little bit to the right and pulls the green a little bit to the left. Now I know it can seem contradictory because what you're seeing is the opposite of that, and that's what happens when you shift it. The information is missing. So you kind of get the opposite effect. So if you would rather see blue on the one side and red on the other and green be stable, then you can switch things up. It's not the end of the world. You can really still get the image that you need. So that's all it is. But I didn't want to, do this twice, so I just made a little node group for it. So if you want to make a node group, go for it. Okay. So what this will look like in 3D when it's done is this. So you can see the light beam is relatively clean over here, and it's nice, and it almost has a slight sense of volume to it, especially if you look at the brighter glares over there and here on his cloak thing. So yeah, there's been a lot of work this week, I have to say. Most of the visual work that you're seeing this week has been from this week. The rest of the stuff has been, crazy stuff over the past month or so. That is it for the visual part of it. Now this week not this week. Over the past month or so, we've had consistent rain, and we've had the opportunity to actually record a river and all that kind of stuff. So as you can see, I have quite a number of new sounds here. I just want to see which ones are after. It's roughly from here. These are after last week's, the last vlog. So I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm just going to play you a few. What I did was I didn't want the umbrella sound in. So what I did was I just kind of, bowed over my phone. That's the device I use to record everything. I'll put information in the post as to what phone it is if you want the same sound. Basically what I did is I just kind of bowed over my phone, not like, to the ground, just like bent over it, so that the rain would not get to my phone, but that it would have unobstructed sound. So it's not completely unobstructed, but it's pretty good. So this is what the heavy rain one sounds like. I really have to relabel that. That's not as heavy as I would think it is. If I think heavy rain, I think like what I'll play you guys later. But this is a good rain. This is a solid summer rain. I think that's what I should call it. Okay. So basically same storm, just not storm. Basically same rain, just not as loud or open. See, comparatively, it's heavier. This is one of those things. And of course, thunder strikes. extremely difficult to record for some reason. I think just take these glasses off. I think what happens is my cell phone doesn't have enough surface area on the microphones to really capture the presence of the thunder. So it just kind of feels a little 60s. I don't know, it's just not as good as I would like it to be, but this is what it sounds like. So as you can tell, it's not the best. It's just a lot of thunder stuff. Anyway, so I did get crickets. So this is one really loud cricket. And of course we have this mini one. And we have mini with one loud one. So that is really, really, really cool. And of course, the river I mentioned earlier. Now the river one can be used for rain if you take the bass down a lot. I had to up the bass for this one actually for it to sound like a river. It just sounded like heavy rain. But it was actually a river. So it's just one of those things. Anyway, so yeah, that's very much it for this sound as well. I did a lot of the thunder stuff, and basically what I'm probably going to do is build unique strikes for the plague where the thunder is supposed to be like super extreme. You know, when Pharaoh says that, you know, the hail should stop, but he especially asks for the mighty thunderings, I think that's the words he used, to stop as well. So the thunder has to be something that would shake you up. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be just a slight rumble. So that's why I have so many Thunderstrike files, so that I can possibly combine them, put them over each other, use the one's treble over the other one's bass, that sort of thing, to just see if I can't really build strong strikes, you know, that would actually shake you up, if that was what was going on the whole time. It's a very difficult thing. So something else that was very interesting this week. So if you read in Exodus chapter 8, it says that the frogs will come up out of the water. Now, basically, if you just read that flat out, and you don't know anything about frogs, you will assume that the frogs came up from under the water, similar to what you've seen in previous movies. Now, that can happen, depending on the type of frog. I'll put a link in the post to an article about that. But it might have been a mix to where they simply came out of the river, not just necessarily came, you know, like surfacing from under the water. I don't know. It's very difficult because I went to look at the specific type of frog that dictionary suggested, you know, Rana esculenta. And quite frankly, I didn't find anything that says how long they can stay underwater. So anyway, the approach I'm going to take is to simply have some just come out of the river, but definitely most of them will come up from under the water, because it just makes for a much more interesting visual. Similar to the floor opening shot where the water slowly reveals the frogs, but I'm definitely going to follow a similar approach. So that is it for the past 5 weeks. So it's been a lot. Have a great one, and God bless you.